Well, there was a quite different feel to tonight's game. It almost felt like shades of 2020, and I hate to say that because I think this team has quite a massive upside, but a bit of regression tonight as we welcome you into Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken. I'm John Lee, joined as always by Sam Kastner, who's dangerously close to me tonight, sharing one camera, Joshua Morgan and Michael Black. And guys, yeah, it wasn't the same tonight, but I still think this team has a lot of promise.
It was interesting, frustrating. I did a whole thing pregame where I looked at the new Losada ball and the high pressure up the field and everything, and I kind of feel kind of like an idiot because we didn't see any of that today. We didn't see high pressure up the ball, and it was a little bit frustrating. It felt like DC United of old.
You know, I'm going to come back to it several times during the show today, but it felt like we regressed a little bit to the point where you didn't really know how the team wanted to score. Like you saw that at home last week, you know, going forward, pressing, trying to create opportunities. It didn't really come off as well this week. I'm not going to hold them full account to it because they're very short on players. You weren't even able to field a full bench today, but certainly we're not just going up and up in the early days of the Losada era.
Yeah, I agree. It was rough. I wouldn't go so far as to say it felt like Benny Ball of last season. I think that, this is probably just a mentality thing. Throughout the game, I had hope that we would find some way to find that final goal, the final ball in the final third, but we just didn't, and that was sad. I don't know. I also think that we possibly deserved a point. I don't think that New England ran over us. Like Heinz, it was super unfortunate that he got that own goal. That was rough.
Yeah, I don't think we were thoroughly outplayed tonight. It looked to me like two teams that were still early in the season and trying to find their legs, trying to find what they wanted to do. It felt a little bit like regression for DC United just because last week they had a stretch of that game where they were imposing their will, if you will, but at the beginning of the game against New York City, they were a bit out of sorts and they were struggling to kind of assert their authority. And then in the second half, I think they were comfortable with the lead. But I think we're about ready to head it. Let's send it to Hernan Losada. He's at the podium now.
Hey, Hernan, thanks for your time. You're obviously working on a long-term project with this DC United team to build a system and build a style where you looked good last week, coming back and winning. Where do you think things happened or settled for you tonight?
I believe it was a close game. It's always difficult to come to New England. I mean, the last time DC United won over here was like 9 years ago. So that says enough. And even though I think we didn't start well the game, the first 15, 20 minutes maybe were for them, especially in possession, not creating big chances. But from minute 25 until the end of the first half, like it happened last weekend, was again a game for us where we control, where we had many good moments. The last ball sometimes was missing. Some good shots from distance, some good crosses from Julian, some good set pieces. And it's a pity that when we were the better team and we were really in the game, first half was over. And then I told to the boys during the halftime that this was going to be a game that it will be decided by one moment, one mistake, one error, one disattention. And unfortunately, we scored an own goal. It can happen, but on the other goal, it could be also an own goal and was against the post. So again, big efforts of the whole team, and we were in the game until the very last second. So what can I say? I think in general, the balance after two games is more than positive with all the difficulties we have to even come with 20 players. Today we were again with 5 players on the bench, 5 field players on the bench. So everything what comes in the future, it can only be better. And still proud of all the efforts the boys did today, about the substitutions who came with extra energy, and we keep on building up. No problem.
We'll go to Jason Anderson.
Hi, Hernan. It seemed like, as you said, there wasn't a lot of chances. There wasn't a lot in the game to separate the teams. What did New England do to maybe limit your chances throughout the 90 minutes?
Well, they limit our chances. We limit their chances. Was a very close game. They have two very good forwards that in any moment that we were trying to press them, they just kick it long, and then with Bo and then the number 9, I forgot his name. They have the capacity to hold the ball to give air to the opponent. So it was really an equal game. I mean, we have our moments during the game. They had their moments on the game, and was the kind of a game that the team who scored first was the one who was going to win. And unfortunately, we were unlucky with that own goal. But it's a good team. Please don't forget that New England is the favorite to play playoff. They were the team who created the most chances last season. They have a good squad. The players who came in as substitutions were the same or even more quality than the players who were on the field. So today you lose against a very good opponent, and don't forget that we were on the game until the very last second, and it was a very, very equal and imbalanced game.
We'll go to Alonso Contreras. Alonso.
Thank you, Zach. How are you, Coach? Tough loss. Coach, DC United have more possession against New England and also did 6 shots. What is the sensation of the team that you have going back home and get ready for the next game?
We don't like to lose. We want to we came here to win. To be honest, we came here to get points, to have a good result, and it's disappointed to go back home to DC with nothing. But on the other hand, I'm still proud, and I see a lot of progression. And like you say, more ball possession. Actually, that's the last statistic that I always try to look for. I really don't care about possession. I care about how many shots on goal, how many situations we create, how much danger the opponent create. And today, once again, I think was very equal for both teams. So more possession, yeah, okay. It could be positive for the future, but it has to be possession with scoring chances.
We'll go to Jose Umania.
Hola, Hernán. Mi pregunta es sobre la defensa. ¿Cómo tú sientes la defensa jugó hoy manteniendo esos 2 delanteros? Y cómo tú piensas sobre la química que los 3 han tenido durante toda la temporada.
¿Hablas de nuestro equipo?
Sí, de usted, de nuestro equipo, sí.
Bueno, me parece que falta para tener esos automatismos, esa química de la que vos hablás. Hace falta minutos, hace falta más entrenamientos, sobre todo con el ingreso de Roberta, de Kimarni, Adrian Pérez. Son jugadores nuevos que están aquí en el club hace 7 semanas, 7, 8 semanas. Eddie y Yamil ya se conocen de antes. Pero sí, desde el momento que nos comencemos a entender un poco mejor, seguramente podremos ser un poco más peligrosos de lo que fuimos hoy. Siento que tuvimos buenos momentos, con muy buenos centros, cambiando de frente de un lado al otro. Julian tenía mucho espacio para meter esos centros y nos faltó un poco de timing, estar en el momento justo, en el lugar indicado para empujar esa pelota, que del otro lado, bueno, lo pagamos caro con ese gol en contra. Fue un partido muy, muy parejo, muy parejo. Al final se lo terminan llevando ellos, pero las cosas podrían haber sido muy distintas.
We'll take one more question. We'll go back to Jason Anderson.
I wanted to ask, I know he didn't play in the game, but you did manage to travel or bring Felipe on the trip. It seemed his recovery was faster than expected. How much do you think he'll be able to contribute in the next coming games, given that he's managed to come back so fast?
Yeah, he's part of the team. He was working very hard to make this comeback. On the other hand, he didn't play any single minute during preseason. He doesn't have any match rhythm or any game minutes. So we will try to find ways to give minutes to all the injury players that are coming back and join the team. Very happy very happy for him. I know how much effort and dedication he puts the last couple of months to join us as quick as possible, and I'm sure he will help us. And I hope that on the short term, many other players are coming back and joining the group of fit players. Because at the start, okay, we only play one game per week, but later on we will have 2 games each week, and you have more depth and more players to support the heavy calendar.
That's all the time we have, folks. Hernan, thank you very much.
Okay,
That's DC United head coach Hernan Losada joining us here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. And I apologize for the audio there. Where it was coming in a little quiet from Hernan and the group there. But, you know, as he pointed out early on there, and I think this is something that we omitted, at least from our initial reactions from tonight, DC United have an entire 11 that are injured and unavailable right now. And I think the complexion of this side is very different when many of those players make it back onto the field. But I guess I look at that and I still don't immediately know where the goals are going to come from, and that gives me a little bit of concern. I don't know how you guys are feeling.
Yeah, I think Joshua made the point while we were listening to the press conference. This is not a bad New England team. I think in the back of my mind, I always think of them as middling, playing in a stadium that really isn't made for soccer. A couple other issues they've got there, but you know, this is a team that made the conference finals last year. So it's hard to get too frustrated, but at the same point, you are frustrated because this was not a great showing for DC United.
We haven't heard from an actual DC United head coach in a while, and that was weird to hear. You know, we were listening. Ashton did a great job as an interim, but and then we had some technical difficulties last week. But it was refreshing to hear him be absolute in his ideas. He said, "Hey, this is a tough team. I've got a bunch of injured players. We did our best, and it came down to an own goal. Like it came down to one mistake, and I told the guys that it would, and then it unfortunately went against us. I don't mind that. I'm not frustrated with that. If it happens 5 times in a row, maybe it's a little bit annoying.
Yeah, we have a problem.
And that's kind of where we were last year. But I don't see it happening like that. I think, like Black said, and a reference to what I said, I think this is a good New England team with a coach that knows how to win in MLS versus a coach who's literally only played 1 game. So I'm okay with taking this lump with a fresh coach and the injury list.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's harsh. I think we maybe deserved a point. I don't know if New England created a whole lot of chances. Maybe nor did we. But I disagree with you all before the press conference. You were saying that we regressed a little bit, and I really don't agree with that. I think last week we punched above our weight, maybe. I don't think we slid back at all this game. I think this game you could still just see that we were a little bit off our touches. We didn't exactly know where everyone else was going to be. We didn't exactly know who we were passing to or crossing into or who was taking the shot. I think it was us just still figuring out our system as opposed to us playing lights out last game and then having no idea this game. I think last game we had the home fans around us. There was a lot of energy around it. Everyone was really hype, and I think that led to us getting those 2 goals, right? Brendan and Russell had lights out shots, and I don't think we can expect that every game. So this game, we just didn't really have any lights out shots.
Well, Brendan did put it in the back of the net again.
Oh man, it was unfortunate.
He didn't
deserve it.
I think I'm counting 3 for him because I don't think Castellanos got to that last. I think he's got 2 own goals, 1 goal, and not putting too much fault on the first 2, but that last one was not pretty. Sam, I want to talk about what you said. Yeah, this is obviously a very new team in this tactic and this idea, and they're trying things they're not super comfortable with. And yeah, the passing accuracy is down. Like, these are things that they'll probably get better at all season. What I think they regressed on is kind of maybe this is the difference between seeing it live in person and seeing it on TV. I didn't see the pressure that we saw last game.
I agree. I don't think there was.
I saw a few moments of it maybe, but there wasn't the intensity that they brought, or maybe New England just dealt with it better than NYCFC. I think our win against NYCFC has been discounted by a lot of the media out there. I think that was a very good win, and I think we should be.
Well, they won 5-0 today,
right? And it looks even better now, right?
Sure.
You're right. I think Losada tempered our expectations going into the preseason, and we said this last game, but to the point where he was getting frustrated with media. He was saying, we're not going to win a lot of our first games. It's going to take us a long time to figure this out.
We're not fit.
And everyone just needs to deal with that.
Yeah.
And this game is when we saw it. Last game, again, potentially we punched above our weight. There was a lot of energy buzzing in Audi Field. You know, we're unfortunate to have a little bit of a string of away games right now. So maybe had this game been home, it would have been a little different again. But I think the game we just saw was the expectation that Losada set for us all.
Yeah, and you wonder a bit. You heard the coach talk about how this was a game that they came in to win. They were not trying to, just hold on for a tie or anything. But you do wonder if they perhaps set up a little bit differently than you might have tried for your first game at home with fans in over a year. If perhaps they chose not to actively press as much and try to play a little bit of a different style, being on the road with the travel. We don't know. We didn't get a whole lot of insight on that from him during the press conference.
Got a little bit. He said that DC United hasn't won there in 9 years. Yeah. And he reminded us
of
that.
Setting.
Yeah. It was funny. And the way he said it, I laughed. I laughed out loud because it's like he acted as if, he's been around this team and this club for so long. They're like, well, we never win there. It's a hard place to play. It's like, and I think I said out loud to you guys, like, in your experience playing there. But like, that's one of the things I think I love about Losada, right? Is like he's just embraced this team and the identity, and he also knows these things. Like it wasn't lost on him that we haven't won there in forever. Like he knew that, and he said it to the team. A lot of new coaches could come in and be like, "Hey, that's in the past, like right? Those are other players, other coaches. Like my team is undefeated there because we've never lost. But like the reality is, no, he looked at that, he knew that, and he talked to the guys about it, and I really appreciate that about him.
So I want Joshua to touch on a point that I saw him typing into the show notes. You said something like, in a game of margins, you could tell that we were missing 11 players. And we tweeted it out in jest before the game of there's so many players injured. And our friend said he was looking at the lineup and he went to say, oh, what about? And he couldn't think of the name of the player he meant. And I said, no, he's injured. Just, it doesn't matter who he was talking about. I knew that he was injured. We have so many first team players injured right now. Joshua, you seem to think that that's what made the difference in this game.
I think it's going to be the fate of our season. I don't see DC United making a big signing coming in, so that kind of determines where we go. I'm not mad at the first two results. If we translate that to the rest of the season, we probably have a decent season, maybe don't make the playoffs. But it's what Losada is able to do once he gets those 11 guys, a lot of starters in that list. What does he do with them? And does he fix the problems that are in the squad? Because there are problems. I think we suffered at forward. I love I love Segura's hustle.
Sorga.
Yeah, he reminds me. Hustle, but nothing else, right? And that's kind of what I got from Sorga today. And I know there's some people that love him for that.
Yeah, our friends who are in the podcast realm were really hype on Sorga last game, and that really surprised me.
You're gonna put me at another show note I put down. He's got 0 shots in 174 minutes played, or something like that.
Yeah, I think he has a lot of hustle, and believe me, as a Leeds fan, I understand Bielsa ball in this high press with a one forward. You need your forward to be defending against the other team's 4 defenders. They need to be running the entire time, and I fully understand that. But they also need to be able to hold up the ball and make a positive pass and have a shot on goal and just make positive plays for your team. And I didn't see Sorga do that once in the past 2 games that he's played in.
Yeah, I think I said to you guys during the game, some of his best passes are backwards. Because he'll take possession or he'll win possession and then he'll play it backwards, and it's like, I need you to be moving toward the goal. I need you to be more of a clinical striker who's able to receive and turn and shoot. And yeah, the fact that he doesn't have any shots is damning. But I don't know, what does that mean for? Because I think all the reports we saw coming into this season were that he was probably ahead of Ola Kamara on the depth chart despite the injury, and so. Are we that screwed, or what's the?
I think sorry, Black. We had our hand raised. I would have loved to ask Losada what he expected of his subs coming in, because coming in the 70th minute, it's hard to really make a difference. And we again mentioned this last game, but Kamarni Smith scored a bunch during preseason, and I've been surprised that he hasn't gotten more minutes.
Got some minutes tonight.
He got 20 minutes tonight, which. As a forward, that's definitely enough time to make an impact, but it's still pretty hard to make an impact in that amount of time. So I wonder what Losada said. He came in with Perez and Roberta, so I would have loved to have heard what Losada said to them. and just what his expectations were around what they were able to do. Black, I think I cut you off.
No,
Sorry.
you're completely fine. We talk a little bit about adjusting to a new system and trying to play rather than think. And I think you may be seeing a little bit of that at the forward position, particularly if you're asking a forward to do something different than what they're used to. So many times it comes down to a magical moment, and you've got to do the work to get yourself there. You've got to be in position. You've got to be ready to take advantage of it. But if you're spending the whole time worried about how you're fitting in with the rest of the squad, what kind of role you're supposed to be doing, whether you play it back, whether you are recovering, whether you're getting forward, I think that is where you're going to see more of the issues. Defending, you do have to defend as a unit and know what everyone's doing, but you can make up for it. But if you're not putting everything together, you're not getting shots, you're not getting opportunities, and you're definitely not finding that magic that you need sometimes when a game's not going your way.
We're live here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken. And as always, you can join the show by shooting us a text at 540-986-4833. That's our new number, 540-9-UNITED. Of course, you can call that line. That's open right now. Tweet at us. Get involved in one of the chats on any of the platforms we're on. But what I wanted to talk about real quick right now is, the team just tweeted out, which is good. Unlucky tonight, but we're on to the next one. Looking at the stats of the match, 6 shots apiece for DC and New England. New England had 2 shots on goal. DC had 1. Both keepers had 1 save. New England had 1 more corner, 6-5 over DC. Fouls were super close, offsides were super close, and possession was a split 50-50. And so when you hear the coach say, one unlucky break could have gone either way, he's spot on. I mean, and at one point in the first half, New England had 70-some% possession, and DC really leveled that out in the second half.
Joshua, I'd love to talk about the stats that you were looking at. Again, it was against the New York, but our possession stats are going to look a little differently this year. And for those of you who don't follow us on Twitter, or maybe you didn't see that, I'd love for you to talk about what you found.
Yeah, so I kind of just looked at it because it was appalling. If you looked at our possession numbers last week, it was close to 70-30, and that's not good, and almost never ends up in a win, but it did, and so it kind of makes me question now, in retrospect, are we would you rather have 49% possession and lose? But yeah, I'll talk about why that was the way it was. It's because we were pressing about the same as we did last year, actually, but we were pressing higher up the field, drastically higher up the field, and that was leading to more possessions quickly higher up the field, which led to more passes in the box, which led to more shots and score creation opportunities. And we didn't have that tonight. It was more. Someone in the comments said Sorga's a Benny Ball player. It was almost. It's almost a Benny Ball-esque game, right? And Sam, you kind of said no, but that's kind of how this one felt. I'll take last week, even if we don't win, because there's an identity there, and I can recognize it, and I did, and I don't know if anyone did tonight, right?
Why do you think that was that we didn't see the similar pressing tonight in the similar style? Do you think that was a design from DC? Because I would be surprised if it was. I think, to me, New England didn't really play into it. New England didn't have a ton of possession for us to then play the way we wanted to.
I don't know if they were as direct as New York City might have been. And that could have played. And Bruce knows what he's doing in this league, right? So Bruce has played against Red Bulls before, and gosh, guys, you might kill me, but the less possession, high intensity pressing kind of system is what Red Bulls have made famous for a long time. Yeah, that's just a fact. Look, if we can benefit from it, that'd be great. And maybe Bruce knew how to deal with that, or maybe it's the fact that we flew to a football stadium on a jet tonight, or today, and it was on short notice, and it's a away day, and Losada was like, "Hey, I don't want to burn my guys out."
And he said that in the pregame press conference, is that it's very different to fly to a game and stay there overnight and then fly home, and he is not used to that, right? In England, you kind of, or in
Belgium,
in Europe, you kind of bus there that day and then you bus back that night, or maybe you stay in a hotel the night before. But he's gearing up for this slew of away games, and he admitted in the pregame press conference that that's very new to him, and it's not something that's new to the players, but he's having to cope with how to train your players around knowing that you're flying places or sitting on a bus for more hours. And that is something that's very different in this league. And especially from bigger name players who come over from Europe into the MLS, and you hear them before they play and they say, this is going to be really easy. I'm excited to play, no holds barred soccer. It's going to be a breeze. And then halfway through the season, they say, wow, this is really difficult. The travel is a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the way you approach the sport in America is very different. And Losada knows to anticipate that, but is still learning how to treat his team around that.
I'll give you credit to some extent with that discussion, that it is hard for Losada to make that adjustment. Even you can talk about it as much as you want, but until you're doing it and going through it. But most of these players that we have are the same players that we had last season and have played in MLS for a while. It's not a new thing for the players. Losada is not on the field putting in the work out there. But I do think you may be seeing a little bit of that holdover wear and tear from what, from all accounts, was a very arduous preseason. Losada has made no bones about it. He doesn't think the team is fit enough. He's more than happy to push them to their limits now if it's going to benefit them down the stretch. And maybe you're seeing a little bit of that with the number of folks we have on the injured list. Fortunately, we've got our one West Coast trip of the year coming up next weekend.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully get into more of a rhythm and be able to build that fitness back up and be good to go. But I do wonder if you have a confluence of things coming in. If you think that traveling for a game like this, Boston's not that far away.
Yeah,
you're right. But again, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this team is still learning a brand new style under a brand new coach. And he has given the expectation that it's going to take a long time, because he's not coming in and sort of changing the way things were, but giving his own spin on it. He is completely changing the way DC United plays. And he knows that it's going to take possibly a third to half of the season for our players to really understand it. And that's something he said during the pregame press conference a lot, is the term automation. He doesn't want the players to have to think about where to pass the ball or where to be on the field when certain situations are happening, either from our team or from the opposing team. And it was Julian and Frederick, and they both said the same thing, is that they are learning how to play without thinking. They are learning how to look at the game and say, when our team's doing this or when this team's doing this, this is where I have to be on the field, and I don't even think about it. My body's just moving to that position.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a long time. So, you're right. I brought up travel. We're talking about all these other things, but at the end of the day, I just don't think we're set in this system yet.
Well, and we talked too about it being a game of small margins. The coach said that it was going to be one mistake. And if having a guy who's a little bit tired or, just a little bit off makes a difference in that one opportunity when you lose a game 1-0, that might be all it was. This was not a game where DC United got played off the pitch. It was not a game where they looked particularly like they were going to walk away with it. Perhaps a little bit unlucky not to get any points out of it. I think disappointing all around. So anytime you have a result like that, you can look at any number of things that can be that small difference.
I think one of the biggest impediments to getting to the sort of automated status that Losada would like to see is the injuries, and as they keep coming, and you don't have the entire team able to train and able to buy in on the system, and so that just adds more and more time. And as those guys come back, then you're plugging somebody in that's like, maybe you were starting to build some chemistry, and you plugged in a player who's better and more talented, which is great, but then that's almost going to set some of those tactics back a hair, because now it's like, oh, we got to get Paul involved in how we do business now, and we got to get Donovan Pines involved in how we play out of the back now, and so those types of things are going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's almost an obstacle. You bring in your quote unquote first team players, and maybe Birnbaum, right? He's your obvious first choice for our defense, but suddenly we're playing 3 in the back, which I'll take the L for that one. I said that we were not doing that in the preseason, but all of a sudden Birnbaum's playing a 3 in the back, and the whole team has to readjust to him learning the system, and it's definitely a setback.
And you saw today, the team rolled out the same lineup that we rolled out last week.
Yeah.
I mean, how often did we get a chance to see that last year? A lot of it's out of
not once.
Yeah.
I'd have to go through
in back-to-back weeks. I don't think so.
I mean, part of it's necessity. We talked about having a lot of folks out. You can't even fill out the bench, and at that point, folks more or less slot in where they're going to slot in. But there is something to be said for consistency.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to bring up, and Joshua, you and I talked about it quite a bit during the game, but wow, man, one of the guys who's been consistent and not so much in a good way is Edison Flores. It's been another tough go for him today, and I think he struggled a lot last season. He wasn't a highlight last week. Where do we go with Edison Flores, and should DC United fans be starting to get concerned, or is there still time left before we need to write him off?
I think that we need to give this whole team a chance. I'm not
early
thrilled with the fact that he is not playing well. He started to play a little bit better towards the end of last season, but I think it's unfair to judge him apart from the way that we're judging the entire team. Right? No one is going to... go ahead.
I disagree. He's got a designated tag on him. That's
You're right.
Designated player.
But the whole team is learning
Not
a new
worth
system.
$5 million.
No, the whole team is learning a new system, though, so you can't expect one player to immediately understand that system and then carry the whole team with him. Perhaps there are players who can do that, but I don't expect that. We know that's not Flores, though, from his play last season. So whether or not he should be a designated player and we should have paid that much for him, I think is a different argument. But whether or not we can harshly judge him based on the way he's playing this season, I think is the question John asked. And for me, that's a no.
For me, look, I'm willing to give him I forgot about Edison Flores last year. I'm giving him a mulligan. He had a COVID death in his family. He fractured his face. And there was like 10 games. So forget about last year with Flores. Let's pretend he's new this year. Yeah, he hasn't impressed so much. Is he being singled out because he's the one player that's worth more than $2 million on DC United's team right now? Maybe. And maybe.
No, he definitely is, and he should be. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. That comes with the territory. When you have that tag, I think that's fair.
Yeah, not even by us as criticism, but on the field. Are people... No one's double teaming Sorga right now. You don't need to. No one's are we really double teaming Yamil Assad? So maybe when we have a Paul Areola shift in there to be part of that three, or Nigel Roberta is able to go 90, or Ola Kamara is back, maybe there's more freedom for him to operate and play his game. And maybe he's just being shut down. And so that's my kind of excuse. My criticism is he worth the $5 million when Assad was free? Right now, I can't see a difference between the two players.
So my other thing with DC United, shifting the conversation a little bit, is that for, my God, 15, 20 years now, it feels like we haven't had that target forward, and that has consistently been
Eddie
a hindrance
Johnson
to this team. Shut up. Just shut up. Mute his mic. I don't know which one it is. Whatever number it is, mute it.
Sam's going to hit a random button, and we're screwed.
I think, could see that, and there was a lot of conversation about Gressel coming in, right, and being able to whip those balls in. And today specifically, I think we saw that Gressel was kind of whipping those balls in, and they were always a little bit too close to the keeper, and no one was really running in for them. And yeah, you can say that that's a criticism on the team that no one was making that run in, but possibly also that was a criticism of Julian for not being able to pick out a man, or not being able to see that no one was running in and possibly taking another touch or playing a simpler ball on the inside. He is so used to just having Joseph Martinez from 2 seasons ago that he could whip in a ball and just know that he was going to make some type of play on it, that he didn't have to think about it. He could just cross in whatever he wanted. So I think he has not been able to make that adjustment, and I really saw that today.
I think Julian Gressel has been hands down the best player for DC United this season. If you look at the stats, he's the one driving. He's playing almost as a 10 at right wing back. I give him every credit. Yes, he doesn't have that target.
Yeah, I mean,
shouts to DMV, who asked me if Doyle doesn't count as target forward. I have a Doyle bench-worn jersey, so I appreciate that.
Doyle
shout.
is the rare defensive forward, and he's not a target.
I really appreciate Connor Doyle.
The man with the Doyle lasso.
Go ahead, Black. What were you saying?
No, I believe Gressel had the cross on both of the goals last week. I don't have a problem with the crosses he's playing in. You're right, he doesn't have a Joseph who can make up for a whole lot of issues, but I don't think that Gressel's crosses have been the overriding problem.
No, you're right. They haven't been the overriding problem, but the criticism and the question when he came to DC was, is he going to be able to perform without someone who, how many goals did Joseph have that? 27, right? When he has someone who's close, when he doesn't have someone who's close to 30 goals in a season at the end of his crosses, are his crosses going to be as effective, right? Is it his phenomenal service that's giving Joseph the balls, or is it Joseph Martinez who's just really good in front of the goal? And I don't know. Maybe that question's a little bit being answered. But is it that his crosses aren't that great, or is it that DC
Yeah.
United
I
doesn't
got a
have
highlight
someone
reel.
phenomenal
Russell
on
Canals gets a
goal?
ball on his foot from a corner and like buries it as a defensive midfielder. That ball was on it.
I'm not talking about last game. I'm talking about this game. And this game, his crosses didn't find anyone. I was unimpressed with his crosses this game.
There's got to be someone there, and I think we've all kind of agreed that Sorga's not it.
You're right, but if you cross to no one, is that on you or is that on?
Maybe the team are we changing our game plan because we don't have a striker? Like what's your solution though? That he plays an inside and we're not getting anything inside. We just talk about Flores.
Maybe
and Assad.
the solution is not playing in a cross every single time. It's working your way through the middle.
Yeah,
we haven't done that either.
It's possible that the best part of his game is the crosses.
Absolutely,
definitely,
absolutely.
They are great crosses, and if you've got a gift like that, you're definitely going to resort to that more often than not. Especially if that's what you're expecting from your wing backs is to get forward, get the ball in, and help the people will be there. But to go back into the Flores discussion for a little bit, I think I agree that he hasn't done what you need him to do. Like at some point, you can write off the total cost of acquisition. You just said you need to look at what he's doing as a player. But right now, I don't think he's written in ink on the starting lineup. I think you do.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have him out there because you're so short the way you are right now. But I'm running out of excuses and ways to explain away the fact that he hasn't been having an impact on the game.
I think there's some. Oh, someone tweeted out. I think it was Wake on Twitter said, "Don't judge teams too hardly. They still haven't realized that their TAM signings were bad." And it's kind of like a thing for MLS teams. They say they spent this money on these players, they have to play them.
Yeah.
Who's to say Kamani Smith is not a better soccer player than Edison Flores? Forget the price tag. Daryl DK was a draft player, picked, I think, the same position, 5th.
Yeah.
Last year is now a $20 million
Yo, was
player.
DK Generation Adidas?
He
Don't even get Josh.
he might have been.
And I'm just, that wasn't even as much me throwing shade at, just kind of curious because
Yeah.
I know that Joshua loves the Generation
We
Adidas
should have
players.
picked we didn't have the pick, but we should have. He was a UVA guy. Anyways.
Yeah.
I think you play who's ever getting the job done. And right now,
For sure.
Flores is getting the minutes, but not getting the job done.
Black, I think you're absolutely right. If there's more players on this roster that are available for selection, I think there's a good shot that that Flores is not written in ink on that lineup.
I'd rather see Paul than
I think Paul usurps him almost immediately, but even guys like Paredes could push him just to get something different out there on the field.
And that's where I think it'll be interesting because Hernan Losada also talked a lot about developing the youth. And it's not surprising to me that we haven't seen that in these first 2 games, right? But as the season goes on, and he mentioned in today's presser that we're going to have 2 games a week. We might see more of these players coming in, and we might see more of how he's developing those youth players, and they might start to see some more minutes than some of our maybe more hotly signed players.
John, to answer your question, Daryl DK was a Generation Adidas player.
Oh, look at that!
I get to beat my drum for a little bit. I know, and I'm not even mad.
Does Barnsley wear Adidas kits? Now I'm going deep on this one.
Oh man, I don't know. Their jerseys look bad though. I've seen
Barnsley about to be in the Premier League at the rate they're going now.
But look, Kamani was not a Generation Adidas player, and I've liked him. I don't know if DeShields is on the team. He might be just having a free lunch right now. But man, it's been tough. But I want to talk about like the future of this team. I think Losada has been trying to get these guys integrated in the team. The Perez, Smith, and Roberta. He brought them on. I think they were, well, except for Perez, they both got more. Roberta and Smith both got more minutes this game than they did last game. So maybe that's a little bit of an indoctrination in the system, and maybe we see more of that. I remember it's common when new players are new to a system, you kind of give them, you kind of increase their minutes until they're ready to start. I think Roberta will probably replace Sorga. I don't know. And if Sorga's ahead of Kamara, like it might just be Roberta for the year. It's kind of testy. I don't know.
Well, our friends on Filibuster this week talked a little bit about, probably both. Certainly one of Roberta or Kamara will not be on this roster next year was kind of their hypothesis. And it's interesting to think about. But what I was going to throw out there is we do have the long trip to San Jose next weekend. We talked about how today's starting 11 was the same as last week's. I don't think we're going to see the same 11 next week.
Who would you put on, though? Because we had 6 people on the bench. One of them was a goalie, and 4 of them entered the field tonight.
Yeah,
so.
no, I think you maybe make 1 or 2 changes up top, whether you're going to...
Up top, specifically, and forward?
That's what I would do. I mean, we just haven't created...
Are you benching Flores next week? Is that what you're getting to?
Me personally, and I'm looking at last season, I'm looking at the lack of production, I would. I would let them know early it's not good enough.
Shamil is out of the doghouse, and Flores has filled his spot.
I mean, get in there.
Eddie's deep in the doghouse. No, I would. I would take him out. Man, it's just it is, Sam, you're right. It's hard because there's not a whole lot of players available, but I gotta believe some of these guys are somewhat close to coming back, right?
Yeah.
Like, can't we plug?
Well, Hernan said that in the pregame presser. He said, specifically asked about it, and he was very coy. He said, maybe we get some back, maybe we get no one back. Who knows? We still have 2 days until the game. So I think he's really playing it day by day with a lot of these guys.
I mean, we already kind of beat the Sorga drum to death, but if Kamara is healthy, does he get another shot up top as a starter?
I mean, I think he has to.
I think at least to put him in the shop window, you have to.
What
What is his value right now?
Do you know what, though? I completely agree. I think Sorga is not doing it. He is not creating plays for this team. I also think this is a system in which you're not dependent upon your forward to score. And Hernan said that. He said, I don't care where the goals come from as long as we're scoring. And when you have one player up top and your game plan is you've got 3 in the defense and everyone else is flooding forward to score, a lot of times you're not depending on your forward to score. You're actually preferring that he doesn't. You're preferring that he lay off to other players to score. And again, I have my Leeds hat on a little bit. In the Leeds forward is he gets a lot of criticism for not scoring, but in actuality, that's not his role on the team. So if that's the way that DC United is implementing, that's a different story. I still don't think Sorga's the man for that. I'm just saying that possibly that is the frame of reference that Losada is trying to build his team around.
No, you're right, and I don't think DC United will have that like striker that we all want that scores 15 plus a season until they spend a lot of money. But you can't be a dead end, and it's felt like for the past 2 games that when the ball gets to the number 9, the plays is almost dead. And I know he gets like a pass to the assist after some hustle, but we're not going to get hindsight goals. Like that's not going to happen every game. We need something more realistic, and it needs to be like a lead saying he's passing off to a winger most of the time, and that winger is taking a shot or making a pass.
Or possibly that winger's crossing it into a midfielder and scoring.
But what's terrifying about that is, like, sure, that might be the how it should work, and that might be how Losada wants it to work. I don't rest easy at night thinking that now my goals have to come from Yamil Assad and Edison Flores, because I don't think we're scoring still.
So something that's happening in the chat a little bit, and I saw a little bit on Twitter just from tweets of people I follow, is it too hard for Losada to try to implement his system with Benny Ball players? Are the players that DC United has signed up until this point not the types of players that Losada needs to correctly implement this system? I repeated a little bit slowly so you all had time to think about it. I see Joshua has some thoughts. Go for it.
I think it's way too early to try to make assertions about that. I think there is something to the idea of a coach being involved when you're making those selections, and you'll see that over the next year and a half or so as the team fully gets to playing the way Losada wants to. I don't think that we can make that assertion this early in the Losada era to say that these players aren't capable of doing it. We've talked before about the fact that you see players play a certain way and you just assume that is the role that they play, what they do best. Good coaches are able to bring the best out of their players and find ways to make their talents work for the system they're trying to do. So I think you're going to find a balance between the two.
Look, I should probably have a recording of this. I don't like the way that Casper has built this roster. I think we fill spots instead of maximizing, and that is a mentality change from the top. And we started to see some of that happen. Lucy Russian is going to change this team. I think she just fundamentally believes in different ideals than DC United has been practicing for the past few years. And I think the ownership, and I know that, God, I'm sure the chat's going to go off on ownership in a different way, but I really do think they want to win games. At least Levian does, having talked to him. And that's kind of hard to see when you're not. But I think we've done all the infrastructure stuff that we needed to do. I think we're starting to bring in people that are going to maximize the business with Danita and then maximize signings with Lucy. And I'm really excited for that. I think that I think these players are Benny ball players, but I also think they're talented. And it's going to be really the challenge of the season for Losada to get the injured players to fit into the system and to get the most out of the players that are here now, because you can't, in MLS, you can't just like dump your whole team.
Yeah, I don't. Sorry, John. I'll let you pick up after this, but I don't know of any player that you look at and say that man is a Benny ball player and he is unable to play.
No more Doyle's. Like Doyle was.
Yeah.
Connor.
Yeah, you got plenty of guys who were like middle of the.
Segura was also a Benny ball player at me if you want, like, but he's gone. Yeah, we don't have a lot of players like that anymore.
Yeah, like. Paul's not a Benny ball player.
Yeah.
Flores is, well, we don't know kind of what system.
TBD if he's an MLS player.
We're not sure if he's a ball player.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any guy you look at and say, that guy is a hard-nosed defender who is unable to defend in a Losada system, or we haven't been able to score either way. So, my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to go with it, right? It's like, I think this year, we've talked about it in the preseason, and, maybe we got a little hype last week coming off a big win, but this is a transition year, and I think this is where we're going to see, are there players by the end of this season that are, quote-unquote, Benny Ball players, or they just don't fit Losada's style, and they won't be on the roster next year, right? And I think we're also going to find out which players on this roster, perhaps they're on the fringes right now, or maybe they're in the lineup and they're just not performing quite well, but maybe by the end of the season they are, and they find their groove in this system, and those are the guys that are going to stick around. But there are going to be a lot of new faces on this team in 2022 because, Lucy's going to bring in new ideas, like you mentioned, and obviously Losada wants to do things very differently. I think if they have $5 million to spend, they're going to spend it very differently than the last time they dropped $5 million. But all that's to say, we have to just focus on the fact that this was an own goal away from a point on the road, right? And it wasn't a total disaster. Now, granted, New England didn't look spectacular last week either, but it's still early in the seasons, and all we have to be doing is playing well later in the summer, and we'll be fine.
I completely agree. Yes, this was an unfortunate game to watch. I don't think any of us were excited to talk about it afterwards. But it's still early in the season. You don't need to be good early in the season. We've said that so many times. Also, the rhetoric around this team last year was, this is a really good roster on paper. Why are they not performing to our expectations of them? And then moving into this season, we signed a new coach, and suddenly the rhetoric was, all you did was sign a new coach. DC United's not going to be good this season. When we have the same roster that everyone was saying should have been good last season. So I urge everybody to remain optimistic. We're still learning a system. We're still figuring it out, how to be a successful DC United, because that's not what we were last season. But these are still very good players on paper, especially everyone who's injured right now. So I really think that what we've seen even from the last 2 games is not the best of what we're going to see this season.
Well, Sam, I got to tell you, longtime listener Steve has set us up with just a great transition into our next game, but he wants to remind you that Bamford does not get criticized for, quote, not scoring. He gets criticized for wandoing huge chances.
That's a lie. That's actually a lie. He gets criticized for not scoring. At me, Steve. I'm in the media. He gets criticized for not scoring.
No.
Speaking of which, DC United play against a wandoless San Jose Earthquakes next weekend. He was tossed today after receiving a red card.
Off a silly foul, I think.
Oh, man.
I don't think that Wando's ever actually going to retire. He'll talk about it and make noises, but the man is ageless. It's great to watch what he's able to do. You don't get to where he is as the MLS all-time leading scorer without having some kind of talent, even if he does happen to duff a chance or two.
It's funny. I was explaining to Abby, who Wando was the other day, and it's so hard to do with that. You can't do it without mentioning the World Cup, but
Yeah, if
you
you're a
also
fake soccer fan.
Well, you also have to say that he is the MLS, leading goal scorer,
Goal king.
and he should have so many more considering how many sitters he misses. Like
Stop
that to
it.
me, that's
Stop
the
it.
most impressive
No,
part. Is like
my goodness.
he should probably have another 50, 60
So
goals.
should
to his
every
name.
forward, though. Every single
All right,
forward
all right.
misses sitters, right? It's not Wando's specific thing, and it's a really cheap shot.
We don't
to
need
say.
to
You're
spend
right.
airtime
Wando is-
defending Wando.
on
this
Wando,
team.
on Bamford. Come at me all the time. All forwards
You're right,
are going to
Sam.
miss super easy
Wando is
chances.
just like every other forward.
No, stop it.
No trophies.
I'm done.
But I talking about the San Jose game, I think it's going to be fascinating. Matias Almeida still somehow implements a man marking system in MLS. They get burned on it a
Yeah.
lot. Like they lost some games, like 5+ goals last year, and it's going to be fun to see him versus Hernan. And does Hernan actually show up on the road this time, and what that means for this system? It'll be interesting.
Does he need to, though, or does he just go out there and practice some things?
Oh man, these games count points.
I believe Hernan is going to go out there and want to win every single game, but at the end of the day, when you know that this is your only West Coast away game at the very beginning of the season,
I don't know.
That's
He
been
promised
also
us he
thinking.
wasn't going to do that. He said DC United's going to go out there and try to win every night.
you're right. I'm not saying that he's not going to go out there and try to win it. I'm just saying, is he going to take a little bit more creative freedom and maybe try a few different things?
You think the team needs to be changed now? Already?
No, I'm asking you all the
No,
questions.
I agree.
Can ask you a question back.
I think I agree with the point you're making, Joshua. Like, this team hasn't figured out the way they want to play entirely. I don't necessarily want them to start trying to add wrinkles into that until they've put that together.
Okay, well, if you haven't figured it out yet, this is an opportunity to figure it out.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not
that's-
saying we
that's not
try
trying
completely
something-
different
Okay.
things. I'm saying that possibly you take Edison out and you see if someone else is better in that position, and possibly Camarney gets a couple more minutes, right? I'm not saying that you completely change the system. I'm saying possibly this is the opportunity where you treat this like a next level scrimmage almost, and you know that these points are possibly not what's going to make or break our playoff run. So do you take this opportunity to figure it out against a MLS team who's going to play you a little differently than the two teams that we've just played?
I have a hard time imagining Losada taking his foot off the gas.
Okay, that was my question.
Anytime. Okay, well, I just don't see him doing that. I don't think the West Conference, the Eastern Conference really phases him right now, especially because it doesn't matter to him this season, right? It doesn't matter at all.
And it's not like you're traveling after a midweek game before another midweek game with an Open Cup to worry about. Like, you've got a week between each time. It's about the best time that you could do it, aside from the raft of injuries we have. But
Yeah, I suspect he's definitely going to look at tape from San Jose. He's going to know everything they bring to the table. I think if he makes any tactical changes, it'll probably be to try to match up with them more so than to, try to not necessarily change the way we play, but try to find a groove. I think he's committed to playing the way we're playing, and I think we may see a couple changes just because he thinks that, that's what's best for the lineup, and that's how they line up best against San Jose. But I don't think we're going to see too much wholesale, especially because we don't have the roster headroom right now.
Yeah, I don't know if the players on the bench are able to do 90 or 60 because we haven't seen that yet. We've only seen 15, 20, 25. But I hope that we see more of the pressing that we saw in the home opener as opposed to tonight, because the pressing, I think, was the key to DC United's success in the game before, and I think it might have been slightly their downfall today, unfortunately.
What are our thoughts on the San Jose game? Is this a win? Is this it's just too
Yeah,
early to do predictions?
Tune into
Yeah,
our
I think too
Instagram. We do Instagram predictions every game right before, almost before lineups are out.
Depending on when we kind of remember.
Just
And then we put them on Twitter, too, so you'll see in both places.
Yeah, we got to give credit to Sam who got all the points last time. Did
Not
anyone?
so much this
no,
time.
no one won.
no.
No, we all predicted either ties or.
John
I
predicted a
picked a
loss,
loss.
but not the right
3-2.
lineup.
Yeah.
No, I think I said there will be goals, and I could have been more correct.
I can tell you that there will be a lack of sleep next week. It's
Oof,
11
yeah.
o'clock kickoff.
Yeah,
we are
it's
still
brutal.
doing a post game show whenever the game wraps. Stay up late with us, and we'll talk about whatever happens.
Yep. Who needs sleep? It's a Sunday.
Yeah. Looking ahead real quick to this week, Loudoun United play. Is it tomorrow? Doing math right?
Yep.
Yeah, tomorrow at 2 p.m. They play at the Bethlehem Steel. So it's exciting to get them out for their first action of the season. And I'll be interested to see how they play. And we talked a little bit about that in the preseason. Are they going to try to mimic what Losada's trying to do? Or are they going to do their own thing? It should be fun to watch. And they're always enjoyable games.
Should be our 4th overall draft pick, non-generation Adidas player, Michael Edwards. or Michael DeShields, sorry. Making Michael Edwards another former DC United player, sorry. But yeah, it should be a debut for him, hopefully. And the guys that have been pretty, I don't know. I like to watch Loudoun play. They're pretty fun.
Yeah.
Mustafa is a highlight for everyone.
My favorite.
It would be great to see him in action again.
Yeah, and of course the Spirit are home on Tuesday night against the newly rebranded New Jersey, New York Gotham FC at Audi Field. That's Tuesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. Available on Paramount Plus, and it's also home. And Sam, I know
At
how
Audi
pumped
Field.
you are.
I'm so hyped. I've got tickets, Joshua. I'm going with a couple of people. I know a bunch of people on Twitter are going. I'm super hyped to be able to go see a Spirit game in person.
Yeah, it should be fun. We're not going to see DC United at Audi Field for a while. Spirit,
Yeah.
Spirit, I promise, equally as successful, just as entertaining. That'll give you that.
That'll be good.
What a sales pitch. We'll shout our friends at Across the Pond. I know they hosted a watch party tonight with the Scream Eagles, so hopefully some of you guys are still hanging out there listening to us. We appreciate your support. And, of course, if you're listening, you can use the promo code podcast. I think that still works for 5%
Possibly.
off your
You could
order.
try it.
Give it a shot, or tell me no us. They might charge extra.
Or
Who knows?
bill us. Yeah.
On a less important, or I don't want to say less important. Boy, that's not the right transition. We're going to go to a different line item here before I totally bottle that. Check out our bonus content this week where we had a chance to talk to John Harkes, former DC United great and current coach of the Greenville Triumph. It was an awesome time. It was a couple weeks ago, so the content's like a little bit dated, but for the most part, everything, we didn't talk about anything current season stuff, obviously. What a guy to talk to.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably still be talking to him. There's just so many things to discuss.
It'd be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rare that you get a chance to talk to a guy who is as thoughtful and has thought through every element of what he's trying to do when it comes to coaching and the philosophy behind it. And it was fascinating to hear him talk about it. And he was definitely not sparse with his words. He was happy to take all of our questions and run with it. So it was a great opportunity and definitely worth listening to.
Absolutely. And even if you listen to us live, I'd absolutely recommend subscribing to us on your favorite podcatcher, whatever that may be, because bonus content is something that we're looking to bring this season. We're absolutely going to keep this post-game format. We're going to come at you after every DC United game, but we are looking to do a lot more interviews this season, a lot more road trip content. If you have ideas of interviews you want us to do, or people you want us to talk to, or different ideas you want us to explore, please let us know. And those will be kind of thrown out there as just bonus podcast episodes. So subscribe to us. That way you don't miss those. We'll definitely shout them out on social media. But we don't want anyone to miss those. Probably not going to be doing a lot of them live because a lot of them are on very short notice. A lot of the people we are asking to interview have very busy schedules, and we're just very thankful for them to give us their time at all. So probably can't give you all enough heads up to be able to join us, but we will absolutely push that out afterwards.
Yeah, and before we head off the air tonight, our thoughts and prayers as a show are with a friend of the show, Devin McTavish, and his family. As you may have heard on the broadcast tonight, his wife is battling breast cancer and underwent surgery this week. So thoughts and prayers with the McTavish family. Hopefully everything is headed in the right direction, and we hope to see Devin soon back on a broadcast and hear his voice analyzing many of the DC United goals as this season progresses.
And wins.
And hope to God there's wins as well. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight, hanging out with us late. It'll be a lot later next weekend, but hopefully it'll be 3 points richer for the Black and Red as we say goodbye tonight here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken.